Geekly! This week, Hulk Hogan, real American, separating the art. And now the man who's gonna separate us from all of it, our host, Michael Indiglio.
What is up, team? Welcome to K&M Geekly. Just a sneak peek at what a few geeks are trying to do to get through their week. I'm Mike Indiglio. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Keith Varney, Dr. Nick Indiglio. Oh, God, it's all backwards. And Ron Parsons not able to join us this week, hardest working man in showbiz, but I think we might hear from him virtually later, but not know what he said because he's going to send it after the fact. So I don't know. We'll see how
Let's
that works out.
Let's definitely set him up so that whatever he says,
we're like, wow, we disagree.
Wow, I can't believe he said that.
We've taken a week off or so, a little bit of time off, which is nice. Every once in a while, you got to recharge those batteries. Happy to be back, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. Let's just jump right in and pop around the horn real quick and see if there's anything we want to share before we get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. Nick, let's go diagonally to you. Anything you've watched this week, particularly played or done that you would like to suggest to the viewers or tell them to avoid?
Nothing that I would tell them to avoid. Definitely a few documentaries this week. Plenty of murder TV as always. Finally finished season 2 of The Pit, which was only the final episode, so it was good to kind of get an end at least to that with what was happening story wise. Highly recommend that though. I watched a couple episodes of Marshals, which is the continuation of Casey's story on that big show everyone likes. Can't think of the name right now.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the Dutton Ranch,
No.
What?
You liked it. You watched it.
The Dutton Ranch?
True.
Yeah, it was like, who was the guy? It was
they're
with, what's his bucket?
Kevin Costner,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cole
Yeah.
Hauser, all those guys. Yeah.
It was like the ranch
It's
show that I didn't watch.
like if Ronald Reagan had a fever dream. Yeah, got it.
What was
That's a
that
pretty
show?
accurate description.
What was that show? It was very popular for a brief period of time.
Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Yellowstone.
That was it.
Yellowstone. Yes.
And they so anyway, that's one of the spinoffs that's actually on CBS network TV. So it was interesting to watch, the difference between like a prestige recording and a regular television show there. But yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
All
Not
right.
a whole lot.
Keith, what about you, buddy?
I thank you very much. Watched a film that came out in the last 20 years. We watched Send Help last night or the night before, which was I thought delightful. Sam Raimi, I love me some Sam Raimi. He's always him. Like, the number of times you're going to get splattered in the face with a horrible goo is part of the fun. Got the Bruce Campbell cameo. I thought Rachel McAdams was great. I wish it had. If I had written it, I would have gone in a slightly different direction with it all. But I do think that it was satisfying. It was fun. It was like, it's sort of what you want it to be. So I enjoyed Send Help.
Nick, I can't remember if we talked about that. We did not talk about it on the podcast. We talked about it in person. But go ahead and share your thoughts.
Yeah, so I agree with Keith on the whole, except I didn't feel that it was Sam Raimi enough. And that doesn't mean what Keith referenced in terms of like goo and blood and whatnot. Those were funny moments, but on the whole, it just felt a little bit too sanitized for me to qualify as a true Sam Raimi movie. And I wasn't particularly impressed by what they called in the advertising a twist at the end, which really wasn't a twist. I think the story kind of stands on its own. You know what you're getting for the most part, and
It wasn't
like
really
I said,
that twisty. I didn't really see much of a twist. I mean,
No, it wasn't twisty. I would say that where the advertising kind of let it down is it in my opinion, it definitely set it up as more of a horror film than I think it is. But as Raimi tends to do, the tonal sort of
it's a comedy.
Yeah, like
more than a horror.
The tonal melding, the tonal melding between genre tropes and is something he does really kind of never know where you stand. And I thought this film did it pretty well. And I'm kind of with the feeling of that was great. Or it was good.
I think I was benefited because I do not watch trailers or advertising or anything like that. So I was just like, oh, Reggie McAdams, Sam Raimi, sure.
Yeah.
That's all I knew about going in, so I didn't have any expectations.
Yeah, I can't remember what movie we were seeing, Nick. I think we were together. We saw there was one trailer we saw that like really fired me up because I thought it was going to be a kind of a slasher film almost. The first trailer I watched, or maybe just I can't remember the context, but nonetheless, that's Send Help. Yeah, I'll quickly mention Hacks season 5 is happening. It's the final season. They know it's the final season. It is just wonderful in every way, shape, and form. I love that show. I love Gene Smart. I love everything it does. This season is doing sort of figured out that, okay, we don't need to make them fight all of the time. They're best buddies now. It's just like girlfriends, and stuff is happening. We're getting all of our fun characters or side characters are getting storylines that are wrapping things up, and it feels very much, HBO still does this sort of released weekly. It feels very much like they're going to stick to the landing, and I'm kind of here for it. God, I hope I'm not wrong. So there's that, and then I started watching Big Mistakes over on Netflix, which is the new Dan Levy show that he wrote with Rachel Sennett, and it stars Dan Levy, Taylor Ortega, Laurie Metcalf, and a bunch of other folks. It's probably not spoilery, but I'll save the plot details. Let's just say that it's a bunch of siblings whose mom, Laurie Metcalf, who is wonderful in literally everything she does, and
Laurie Metcalf.
they get into some. It's a family drama, but also they get into some big stuff. They step in some crap early on, and it's got that great blend of a little bit of mystery, a little bit of comedy that Dan Levy does so well. His performance is wonderful. Everybody's great. I've only watched the pilot, but I'm in. Can't wait to continue. And that would get us around the horn. Let's jump right in. Nick and I finished, and Keith has watched the conclusion of Hulk Hogan, Real American, the Netflix docu-series chronicling sort of the career and life-ish of Terry Bollea, who is better known to popular culture as Hulk Hogan. You know, Netflix kind of knocked it out of the park critically and money-wise, I think, with their series Mr. McMahon, which was kind of an expose of Vince McMahon, the guy. And this, I think, was trying to follow that up in a way. So we're kind of going to just talk about it. It's not really spoiler if you know anything about Hulk Hogan. But it's the take on this that is interesting is that it's happened now posthumously. Hogan passed away, or Terry Bollea passed away. What was it? This year? Last year? Very recently.
Summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, in July.
And so I think, if I'm just going to jump right in, I think that changed their direction in this, is what it feels like to me. Nick, I think you mentioned it as well. The first few episodes, I mean, clearly the way it ends is after they had wrapped the initial interview process, about 3 months later, when they were going to kind of get any pickups to fill in their stories with their interview, probably their next interview, he had died, and so the ending, quote unquote, becomes more of about covering how the company and all the people who did the interviews, of which there are many. The tone shifts quickly, and it becomes a little bit more memorializing than the first kind of episodes. It's 4 parts. I found the first 3, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, to be a pretty good collection of exploration thereof, the Hulkamania character, what wrestling was in the 80s, how the business was working, and how he really, in a large part, was driving the ship. It was incredible amount of access and footage. And then superimposed on top of that is this very one-on-one interview with Hogan, who is kind of looking back on his career and life from old age. We as the audience know he's dead, so we know it's kind of looking back at his life as a whole. And when it begins, this is my opinion, I can't wait to get all y'all. When it begins, it's a very sort of sad watching an old dude look at the way things transpired and sort of having a bit of what you think is going to be a wrestling with, is it worth it? Or did I make, am I feeling, because as you may or may not know, Hogan has had a lot of controversies, and there's a lot of people who speak directly to camera and tell you they thought he was an asshole. And so you've got all of that, and it really feels like in the first kind of few episodes that they're going to wrestle with this, and there's going to be a really interesting exploration of, is the fame and fortune worth it? Are the people you kind of crawled over along the way, is that worth it? Is it... There's just a lot of great questions. It's like, Keith, it's like you and I say when we watch our Star Trek shows. Sometimes the questions are really interesting, but does the content actually wrestle with them? And that's where I feel like there's a big failure here. Because I think at some point, two things happen. One, no reckoning can come because they ask him point blank, would you change anything? And he says, yeah, I've made some mistakes and I wouldn't have, I'm sorry I lost my family. He's really sorry for a lot of stuff for himself. And then they say, would you have changed anything? And he says, no, it was all worth it. And
The leg drop.
Yeah,
that's all he cares about.
Yeah, and you realize, oh, this man is just a narcissist, and there can never be accountability for a narcissist because he will never see anything but his own victimhood. And it's real hard to... I'm telling you, knowing everything I know about him, going into it, the first episode or two actually started to like play on my empathy. I was like, man, he's just an old dude who kind of... They gloss over a lot of the stuff they gloss over a lot of the controversy. In fact, they don't even mention a lot of the controversy, the truly horrible stuff. And it's very apologetic. And then in the last episode, it becomes sort of a celebration of, instead of wrestling with the, hey, we can appreciate this guy. Like they try to do it with Hunter Hearst Helmsley or the head of
Triple
WWE
H.
now, yeah. Who's saying like we can both love the guy, love what he did for us, or appreciate it, and also think he was a piece of shit. But it's very cloudy. All these guys who you spend 4 hours with telling you what a piece of crap this guy is. Now they're all crying. We feel sorry for them because it signifies the end of their career. It gets weird. It gets weird. So I'm really conflicted on it. I liked the nostalgia bits because it played on my nostalgia. I was part of that. And it made me reflect on, wow, what else? Well, it's a conversation we'll have coming up. As a docuseries, I think it's a mixed bag. I think there are some ups and downs, and I think it's just messy. And unfortunately, at the end of the 4 hours I dedicated to it, I just felt sort of... It's like they tried to manipulate me, but I wasn't here for it, and I just think they dropped the ball. I think him dying really made them re-edit it again, and it just kind of was a miss for me. Keith, I know you have very strong opinions, but I want to get Nick in next because he saw the whole thing, and then we'll jump in and kind of get your view at the end. Nick.
Yeah, a lot of what you said, I definitely agree with. And you have to go in taking one of the things Triple H says at the end, because that's really the direction I thought they were going. I thought the whole point was going to be the question of where does Terry Bollea end and where does Hulk Hogan begin? Can these two characters or people be separated, or are they just, irreparably enmeshed, essentially? And Triple H says, when they fired him after the sex tape controversy, they basically said, we didn't fire Hulk Hogan, we fired Terry Bollea. And so Triple H had really drawn the line of WWE is going to celebrate the character and not the man. Now, there are questions always as to whether or not that's possible. The Michael Jackson documentary or biopic or whatever it's called is definitely wrestling with that as well. And I really think a 4-episode exploration of that would have been interesting. But again, like Mike said, it was definitely scattered, tonal shifts throughout. There was probably only 2 things in the entire documentary that I haven't already learned from other documentaries. One was the situation with his biological brother, and how Hulk feels responsible for his death, which is a part of episode 2. One of the only parts where there wasn't any hedging. It really appeared that he was owning the part he felt like he could have done better with. And the other interesting thing in the first 3 episodes was watching Linda's reaction to their life, pretty much. Now, what if I'm guessing? I think that there was a lot more negative in the footage from Linda that was completely cut, and they almost make her appear to still be in love with the man. If you can even say that, because he was more a character by the end. So those were the only 2 things I found that you didn't get in other documentaries. The archival footage, especially with the WWE library, is excellent. However, in a lot of the B-roll, they use video and pictures that are completely chronologically out of order and not even necessarily attached to the error. That definitely took me out of it a little bit, which I think most wrestling fans will see and notice as well. But they did also have a couple other pieces of video that you likely have never seen before. All in all, when we get to the part where in the final episode where the controversies come up, that's where it really, really lost me, because I was hoping that they would take what they did in the first 3 episodes and really attach some accountability and some pressure to him with the controversies. And instead, they left the entire car crash that his son had and the comments that followed that out entirely. They didn't address the racial allegations. They only really called it a sex tape, which really wasn't even the point of the controversy when it started. So that was all difficult. The only thing I feel like they treaded interesting ground on by not taking a stance was the politics piece. And where they glossed over other things, they left it up to you to think what you wanted to think about the things he says in the political piece. And here's what I mean very specifically by that. He's unapologetic. He says he absolutely stands by his convictions as a Republican, etc. However, they let several moments linger when he was making appearances for the All-American beer, and where he would say things like, "We got our country back," or other comments like that. And they kind of, at least to my feelings, sat on that a little bit and let you kind of make your own judgment there, which I thought was interesting, because I really would have appreciated more of that on the more serious situations that occurred in his life that weren't addressed at all, in the documentary. So all in all, an interesting watch. As a Hulk Hogan fan, again, not much you didn't know. And if you're looking for just a tribute to the character, you get that in the last 20 minutes of the episode. But at the expense of pretty much canceling out anything that could have remotely been interesting about the documentary. My last comment basically would be, I really feel bad for the guy who was clearly philosophical in nature, who was talking about, the wrestling with the character versus the man.
Walter Herzog?
I feel like there was... Is that who?
Yeah,
is that
Werner
who it was?
Herzog.
Yeah, one of the great
most celebrated directors in human history.
Documentarians.
Yeah. Who would be ashamed of this? Anyway, keep going.
Right. Just that that alone could have formed the nexus of this whole thing. And maybe there's a world where someday down the line, once he's been dead longer, we'll get something that's more interesting. But on the whole, it is what it is. And there's bigger questions at hand we have to discuss. So at that point, I think we can get to Keith's rant.
Yeah, let me just insert 2 things, then I'll let Keith cook, because I think I'll sort of leverage this with saying I would have preferred it, to be honest with you, had they just made it a puff piece, like just celebrate the thing, because I believe that a lot of their attempts at juxtaposition, the negative with a lot of the are not in good faith. It was clear that this was produced by and given permission to a certain narrative, right? Like Hogan only signed off. He did this to ensure his legacy, and I think someone will make a documentary, that won't be as fake two-sided, right? I would say the only thing I think it succeeds at is showing the love story. It shows the dissolution of the sacrifice someone who is 1000% into their character or their artwork or their career or their whatever, and how it can disillusion a family or it can dissolve a family. And I think because there is a great love story here between the two of them, even if it's even like, and how it ends is there is some comeuppance there for him. And I think, and for them, their family paid the price for this fame, right? And that is almost the only story that I feel is told with an arc and sort of a resolution, even if they let the kids off the hook. It was also clear that we're going to make our son look good in this. There's a lot of manipulative editorial decisions. But Keith, I know you feel strongly as watching only the ending.
Mike, before you jump in with Keith, though, you said something there that was really interesting, and I just want to touch on it because we're definitely not going to get to it after Keith begins. I like how you said maybe they could have just made a puff piece, because there will never be a time where I can say that the biggest impact in childhood, which I understand how ridiculous it sounds, but he was a real life superhero, the character.
Sure.
It was flesh and blood. It was an art form, that we fell in love with as kids. And he was a hero throughout our childhood. And that's where the conversation at the end with the art separated from reality, I think really becomes poignant, because am I jaded at 50 years old knowing what the man was? Yeah, for sure. Does that change how I felt as a kid about the character and about wrestling in general? It doesn't. And I think that's something that's important to come later.
Keith, I know I keep putting you off, but before we kick it to you, let's get Ronnie's take from the future.
What's up, my fellow geeks? It is I, Ronnie P, and I truly wish I could be there right now, but it's funny. Some of us have to work for a living. So as I get ready for my second job, I want to chime in on the Hulk Hogan documentary. And the truth be told is that I did not watch the Hulk Hogan documentary. Oh, I didn't finish Hulk Hogan documentary. I did watch the first episode. I put it on as background noise while I'm doing work. Guys, I just don't care about Hulk Hogan, man. I don't care anymore. Like, you got to understand, as a black kid from the suburbs who was a huge Hulkamania fan, like, had the shirt on, would rip it and everything. I used to get in trouble, so I'd rip all his shirts. My mom would be like, what are you doing ripping his shirts? Like, I'm a Hulkamaniac, man. And even as an adult, as a teenager, whenever he would come back, I'd go crazy. Yeah, Hollywood, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, Hulk Hogan, Hulkster. Rock versus Hulk Hogan is the greatest match in WrestleMania history to me. So again, I'm a huge Hulk Hogan fan. So when I found all this stuff out, man, it just, that hurt. I cannot separate artists from the art. I can't do it. Chris Benoit, after he murdered his family, never watched his match again. I can't do it. Now, it depends on what you do. Like Stone Cold Steve Austin is a woman beater. I'm not the biggest Austin fan because of that. I can separate that a little bit, just a little bit. But Hulk Hogan to me is just vile. And I'm not going to dance on his grave or anything, but I'm not going to like him or talk, good about the guy. So yeah, guys, I wish I could, but I can't. Sorry, Hulkster, And I guess that's pretty much it, man. That's my view on the Hulk Hogan documentary. I'll watch it for background noise, but I can't separate art from artists. And if you guys can, God bless you. I wish I could. And yeah. And Brooke Hogan, you're a real one. I love you, Brooke Hogan. Brooke Hogan's awesome. I will say the documentary, though, what I did watch episode 1, it was some stuff that I didn't really know about his older brother. So that was kind of cool. But everything else I kind of knew, and I think it's going to happen. And it seems like they're trying, it's WWE producing it. So, they're going to bring in a brighter light. And I don't want to see that either, man. Like, tell me the truth. I want the truth. All right, guys, it's been great. Keep on geeking. Till next time.
Keith, let's jump in. What were your feelings about the ending, and why did it?
Why I love it so much.
Yeah.
That's my hot take. No, look. I think everything you need to know about this documentary is clear in the logo for the documentary, which is a heroic shot of the red and yellow man and are called a real American. This is not a documentary. This is a high-budget, well-produced piece of propaganda. And it is nothing other than an infomercial for this man. And it is all of this discussion about dealing with the controversies and the the things about him that were complicated, right? All of that is part of effective propaganda, because we're talking around. Oh, so he said something controversial. Not everybody likes him, and we give the affect of addressing these things without actually doing it. And that is, to say that there's no accountability here, to say that there's no introspection here is an insult to accountability and introspection. This is propaganda, right? This is a pathological liar and a narcissist propping up, burnishing his image in this piece. I did not see the first three pieces, and I will cop to that. I only saw the end of it, but I would be very surprised if they are manifestly different in what they do. The propaganda part, what makes it effective propaganda is like, oh man, it's, he dealt with this really tough stuff, and he said some language I shouldn't have used. That was wrong. Well, guess what? They never say what the language was. They never say it was even racial. And at no point does his racism get called out or challenged, let alone even named. They don't even name it, right? So if you didn't already know the story, the story of that section of this movie was, man, it is really hard on somebody when the world knows he uses the N-word. It's really tough on him. Boy, you can read, it really weighs on him, and it's bothered him for years. For years, he's had to deal with the consequences of being a racist. Man, that's hard. Poor guy. And his back hurts, right? And so this entire thing is about minimizing, distorting, and not holding him accountable. There were no questions asked of him. We never got anything other than his point of view of, poor me, how hard it is for me to be facing the natural consequences of my actions. And at no point is that challenged. At no point does anybody even acknowledge it. Everybody's like, yeah, well, there was those things, but whatever. He's muscles, right? And it was incredibly disingenuous. You walk out of that thing having no idea what even happened here. And it's just a narcissist burnishing his image in a slightly more complex version than the puff piece. But I think because of that, it's actually more insidious and more dangerous and more harmful. And I think it's ugly. And I think the point of view of the document, somebody might argue, oh, look, we're not going to challenge them. We're just going to show what happened. We're just going to let the audience decide. We're just going to show the thing and let the audience. No, they didn't. All of the decisions in a documentary are intentional. The music that they use, the footage that they use, as they're showing him stumping for Trump, they're playing rousing patriotic music. The point of view of this was, what a heroic thing for him to be doing. They're playing freaking patriotic music, right? These are choices by the writers. The fact that they don't even acknowledge what the things are that he did is, again, a choice by they are shading all of this. The fact that nobody speaks for the other side of these things, right? Nobody says how they were harmed by his actions, by some of these things. No person of color says, hey, you know what it feels like to have Hulk Hogan, the character Terry Bollea, the man, use the N-word, and to have everybody around him be like, right? And everybody's perspective here is, well, I'd love to hear from somebody who that affects directly, right? And weirdly, the thing that I was actually on his side on, right? The the intrusion, the Gawker thing and the sex tape leaking, I'm on his side with that. But there's no introspection there either. And so it's just, I would call it lazy, but it's not lazy. It's very effective propaganda. This is a WWE production.
No, I don't disagree with anything you've said, right? And I'm far be it from me to come to the defense of the documentary. I'm not. But I do want to say why it's, I don't feel as egregious as you as far as the propaganda piece, but more just like as a failure as a project, is because in the beginning, right, it's bookended. The very first shots of the whole thing are him sitting down and saying, I agreed to this because I want my legacy and my story told from my point of view. So it is clearly established this is coming through his narcissistic view. And I think at many points up to that last episode, which I just agree with you on, is not tonally consistent with the rest of the shit, because they do a decent job, not good job, a decent job within clearly editorial parameters by the production, by him, by whomever, his estate, WWE, whatever it might be, of having him tell something through his viewpoint and then challenging it with other people who were there, usually Jesse Ventura, other wrestlers usually, being like, well, he was the guy making the money, so we let him do whatever the hell we wanted, or it was Vince's choice. Golden Goose. And then the other people on TV being like, him being like, I could have been a movie star, and then having all the people on production being like, he was pretty terrible, but he was making money. Like,
right, but that's exactly it. That is the fake accountability.
I didn't say it was like accountability. I said juxtaposition between.
But that's the fake both sides ism of a documentary like this. They called him out on not being a great wrestler. They called him out on lying about the booking, and they don't call him out on the real stuff that actually matters. And so it's absolutely, and I don't know, because I didn't see the first part. Like, it is disingenuous to tell this story, and even to allow him to tell his story without framing this from the point of view. This is the most famous pathological liar in wrestling history. And everything he has ever said is a lie. And if you don't challenge it, this is just him jerking off on screen for 4 hours.
This is actually great. Now, I don't disagree with any of that. I think it's in the... So the question then becomes a couple of things.
Well, before you go, can I...
Please,
because it's a question for you regarding part of the things part of what one particular situation Keith references is. And let me first start by saying, I agree with everything that Keith has said, completely, 100%. But your opinion, Mike, I want to just hear your thoughts. I really felt like the only part of that documentary that really tried to, almost like Shawn Michaels overselling for him at SummerSlam, I felt like that was almost what they were doing with the political piece. And Keith, I understand the music part you're talking about, but I really felt like they hung moments out there for you to kind of be like, dude, this guy is like he's like every one of these other, MAGA types who are making excuses.
I know you're saying they hedged. And how they did that was what they could have done, like, because they show him, they give the whole Trump thing, basically they try to let him out of the corner. I will agree with Keith, because he says, I'm not political. Wrestlers should stay out of it. It was about, I knew Trump personally, and so he was a good guy according to me, and then they tried to kill him, and so that's why. So they tried to get him out of the political corner, and then they tried to fake hold account by saying, okay, here's how they booed him. But instead of letting it linger on the booze, and then, like Keith said, talk to some people. They had the one kid who was like, oh, Hulkamania is going to die after the racial thing.
How about talk to, like, a trans person?
Well,
talk to a trans wrestler and talk about the consequences of supporting this person.
Okay,
and how the consequences of Hulk Hogan supporting this person trickles down to all sorts of people directly harmed by the person he's supporting.
Yeah, but like it's so hard to argue again the opposite point, but I'm just saying, like, you have to look at the scope of what they're looking at, right? Because, well, that's the second conversation I want to have, is that every time you want to talk about someone's work or their art or that is problematic in any way, if it's not completely comprehensive, is that a failure? Is that a cop-out? That's a separate question. That's a separate question.
Okay, but so
But
last
let me
thought on
finish
this because I know
answering-
we're going to move forward. Yeah,
let
yeah.
me finish Nick's answer first, and then the wrestling thing. The booze, in L.A., which was a direct response to his hitching his wagon
No
to
doubt.
Mega, but they let him out of the. They don't define that because they then cop out by saying, well, it's L.A. and it's a different vibe. It's Triple H doing all of the whitewashing, and then I would even almost argue that they did it almost enough there to like at least feign a try, but where the major failure comes in that last episode. And like I say, the last episode is just a major failure. I really felt the first three had something to say. Is that Triple H ends the documentary by saying he even had the power to get presidents elected. And that is
Yeah.
exactly what
Yep.
Keith said. It is mythos making, it is hero defining, and that's some bullshit that WWE did. Their hypocrisy is not called too. They make such a heroic thing about him saying, "Oh, I fired him. I fired the person." Blah blah blah. But then the second they leveraged his fame and his iconic thing to make this statue documentary
They're
and also
treating it
let
like
him
a
back
flex.
in. Yeah, it's
Right, right.
it's a failure.
I guess my last point on that, Mike, and again, I agree with absolutely everything that's being said here. And I guess this is just me trying to give the director some nugget of something positive, because the other part to that last piece during the Republican stuff was they really made it look like when he was prepping for his promo, it really juxtaposed with how in episode 1 you saw someone rising to power and utilizing the medium in a way no one has ever done before, and it has caught on like never before. And it juxtaposes it with this old man who's trying to relive old glory and not doing it well. and I don't know. That's where, if I could give credit, I would. Keith, your point, the music, everything, totally agree with that.
Well, yeah, no, and I think what you're saying is a fair point. I would say the look at that poor old man in pain is part of the propaganda. We are to
you're right.
Like, look at this sad, oh, what a poor guy dealing with natural consequences of his shitty behavior, but we're supposed to be like, "Aw, poor Hulk Hogan," and absolutely letting him off for everything, which I'm on board with really having some empathy for him in a lot of these situations if you have accountability as well. You don't get one without the other.
Yeah, you have to have both for sure. The
It's
only
tough.
other
It's tough to do that because this is not an excuse. Once again, we can stop saying that, but it's tough to do that when I really believe he tried at one point, because he says the backdrops, the controversy.
Yes.
You lost your family. He lays out some of the consequences, we'll say, and just says, "Would you do it again?" And they I think he expected a long lingering shot, a long take of Hogan thinking about it, where they could fade to credits, or at least, and Hogan just goes, "No, I'd do it again." Like,
Well, yes,
you can't come back from that, right? There's no, you're not going to get introspection or any sort of accountability or apology.
But even that question is so open that it is giving him an opportunity, an out, as opposed to like, what role did you play in these things? How do you think that affected other people? And like, why do you use the N-word? Why is that in your vocabulary? Let's explore that.
Sure,
and
I think
none of that.
You're right, but I think
How do you think that affects your fans of color? How does it affect, how do you think the little Hulkamaniacs might feel about that word? Like, why are you not asking these questions?
because you can't.
yeah.
It's clearly prohibited from asking those questions.
Okay, which brings me to your point at the very beginning. You can't talk to a narcissist. Don't do a documentary on a narcissist from the narcissist point of view.
This is my whole point. My point is that the failure of this is that it presents itself as some sort of exploration of the full 3 dimensions. Whereas, right, I would point to a couple of weeks ago I talked about that epic, the Baz Luhrmann Elvis documentary, right? It's about a specific slice of the person, the performer, and a period of time. And so it is not setting out to make you believe it's going to discuss his relationship with a underage woman. Was that appropriate? It wasn't about that. Now, does the documentary fail because we did not look at the comprehension of Elvis as a human being? Like, not every historical figure and every piece discussing them can get the full comprehension. I guess that's my kickback, but it's
it's a good. But I think what you're saying is that the director's intent was clear,
Right.
and in the Elvis doc was I'm going
Yes.
to capture this thing, and I'm saying the director's intent was very clear in this, and that was to burnish Hulk Hogan's legacy.
okay. I disagree. I really and yours is a much more defensible take. My take is more that it almost feels like there was a cut of this that was given or was screened by somebody, and they were like, nope, 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 nope. Let's change that. That's what it feels like, because there are just so many moments where it feels like a conversation. Like, in fact, there are like 3 or 4 narratives that I feel like the director kept being like, I'm giving a lot of credit to this director, but kept giving, which I should name him, kept giving, like, okay, well, maybe I can make the story this, like, pivots, right? Is it a love story? Is it about the sacrifice of your character? Is at the very end, Nick, as you mentioned, they try to make it about, oh, is there a distinguished, they get Herzog to be like, try to ask some questions, and they just fail. It's a failure overall, which sucks, because you know what I wanted from this? I think it's what you were saying, Nick. You know those shows that I love? They're just like toys of the 80s, the best toys of the 80s, best toys of the 90s. We're just like, let's revel in the nostalgia of it. Could have been about that. Or it could have been more like that.
Brian Storkel is his name.
Brian Storkel.
And one of the things I think that plays into all of that is that, and like looking like, was there a cut? Or because when you see the part about him running for president, right? Oh, yeah. That's treated dead serious. And they even make a point at the end to come on to Hogan to say, oh, what if I got scared? I backed out because I thought I was going to win. Like, in a way, that's where I felt like the director was trying to sit at some small points, but never got there. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, that's who he is. He's saying it and you're showing it, and it could be about that, and it wasn't. The only other thing I want to mention before we switch topics is, because there is one thing I really enjoyed. It was one small piece. When they begin the montage of all of the Hulkamania stuff at the end, after the funeral part, they use an orchestral choral version of Rick Derringer's Real American, which was spectacular. Nothing in the documentary had me emotional at all, except for the use of that particular piece of music, which I guess maybe they commissioned for it, because I'd never heard it before. And hearing the greatest theme song of all time put into that type of orchestration, I felt was arrangement. I'm sorry, I felt was really good. So there's a positive.
One of the biggest rewrites I would do, Keith. Our segment rewrite we do on another show of ours, just that I wouldn't solve a lot of the problems, but would have made a point at least. Is in one of the very first interview or discussions of Hulkamania, when he changes characters to the red and white, the Real American character, there's a really revealing, honest piece where Hogan is like, we were going to, Iran was in the thing. He's like, we played on the xenophobia and the nationalism, and we wrote it like a fucking surf wave. Now, he doesn't use those words, but that's basically what's implied. Would have been a great thing to revisit at the end and replay that bit right before the whole, we just do it with his political aspirations or his political, but it's just the same thing, right? It's the same type of character and show and propaganda, as Keith mentioned. And there, I thought that could have been an interesting juxtaposition. Now, hold on. So you've heard our points. You can visit the show or not visit the show. If nothing else, it is pretty revealing exploration of how a narcissist's brain works in real time. It's pretty crazy in that way. But that does bring up the question in the sort of pop culture zeitgeist right now is this new biopic Michael. And the discourse is around how the critics think it's a trash movie, and everybody's lauding the performance of Jafar Jackson, his nephew, and how 1-to-1 it is, and there are some, and about how what a champion he was to escape his abusive father. And Michael Jackson is a great example of an artist whose oeuvre is so ingrained in the fabric of our pop culture that often he is discussed, listened to, and made. And I mean, there's been a Broadway show, a movie. He is talk about someone who has been immortalized in a very seldomly does the conversation of his controversies or his potential pedophilia and monsterhood discussed at all, if not in just sort of a passing glance. Now the question, and I don't want to litigate Michael Jackson right now, but I guess the question becomes, when it comes to artists, and I think we've talked about this a bit before, musicians, creative artists, politicians, the people who started our country, right, all have very troubling, if not straight out just disastrous, monstrous behavior or things in their past. And the question is, can we ever have an enjoyment factor? Does it have to be about that, an acknowledgement of that? I mean, just sort of where do we sit with that? Because it's a tough thing to wrestle. I don't think there's a clear answer. I think we could agree. But where do you guys sit currently about that sort of debate? Can you separate for the lack of better idiom, the art from the artist? Keith, I'm going to go to you first.
Oh, gonna go hot take first. Well, I think my feeling on this is perhaps more nuanced than people will be expecting based on my hot takes on literally everything. And I think the answer to that is context-based, right? Michael Jackson's a perfect example to explore all these contexts. One, say off the top, towering genius, right? The work is absolute genius. There's no debating the talent, the artistry, the work that he has contributed. I love the work, right? That I, it's a part of my childhood. I respect the musicianship. I respect all of the work itself. I respect. However, obviously, that cannot exist outside of context. So with that acknowledged, how do we work with that, with that? And I think you're bringing up the founding of this country is a perfect example of that. We can't not live in this country. We live in, and that you can't throw out the whole thing. However, one, context. We must always consume these things in context. You cannot separate the art from the artist, in my opinion. You can have the art and the artist. And so, I think if you just ignore the larger context of it, you are it's not just disingenuous. I think it's dangerous, right? So to take it to the most extreme example, those SS outfits that they wore, the black outfits, those are really snappy. I think as from an outfit design look, I think they look really cool. But you can't really say that out of context. You can't just like, ooh, wow, I really like that visual aesthetic, and just throw out what that means, right? And so,
can I give you a crazy hypothetical?
Sure.
It's not even crazy. I mean, it feels like it's pointed, but it's not. I'm being serious. Like, okay, we're at a barbecue, all right? Beat It's playing, it's rocking, right? Obviously, we're flipping burgers. We're not going to have a conversation about potential sexual allegations. But there's your 8-year-old niece or whatever, love and Beat It, and it's like, oh, I love Michael Jackson. Can you make me a Michael Jackson playlist? Blah 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 blah. At what point are you saying then that you're taking a responsibility to also educate them on said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am. I'm saying that we do not. I don't think we can responsibly live in a world without context and a situation like this. And so when it comes down to let's make that playlist, right? Say like, all right, we give her the context, and if you still want to listen to this, okay, great. Let's give you access to this. However, the next line is how does my participation in this continue to benefit the abusers, right? So in this context, I think there is a big gap between when an artist is dead and when an artist is alive. And our responsibilities are different when an artist is alive and when an artist is dead. In a situation like this, he is dead. However, his estate, the money that you would be spending, you know, legally obtaining those things for the mixtape are going into his estate, which is actively spending money to burnish his image and to invalidate and invalidate and contribute to the ongoing trauma of his victims. So the way I'm not saying don't listen to Michael Jackson. I'm saying do not give him and his estate money, and do not and you do not have the luxury of doing it without context, because his victims does not have the luxury of doing it without context. They have to hear that song again and again, and it can represent a complicated truth or it can represent a lie. And so and I think that the responsible way, okay, so like, you know, I'm uncomfortable listening to Michael Jackson, even though I'm a fan of it, but I understand why your people are fans of it. But I think to do it responsibly, to do it ethically, you do it in context. And you have to stop contributing to it's same thing with the J.K. Rowling thing. Right. And the Harry Potter situation. And like,
That's another good example.
Like, I'm not saying don't love Harry Potter, but I think you have to love Harry Potter in context, and you have to not only examine your love of Harry Potter through the context of the author. I think knowing more about the author, the work itself deserves a little bit more context. And I think, you know, as we re-examine the Harry Potter books, there's a lot in there that in a larger context, you're like, ooh, yeah, I see some of the stuff that is deeply harmful here. And so again, let's call it, let's name it, let's put it in context, and let's not give this woman any more money to hurt trans people. And so, you know, I love the books. I enjoy the movies. I'm, you know, like I might watch some of the TV show, but I will not do it in a way that is financially contributing to,
I mean, I think
J.K. Rowling's
intent, and there's a inherent hypocrisy in all of us. Obviously, nothing can be done 100%, and I think we acknowledge that when we have this conversation. Because listen, I don't support any of the things regarding the trans community that, and look, we're calling them out because they're everywhere, that Dave Chappelle uses. However, I think he's a genius stand-up, and I will on occasion watch his stand-ups, and I also pay for Netflix, who pays him, and so like it trickles down, right? And that's why I think you say context is so important.
Which for my ethics on that, right, I would find a way to watch it that does not give him a Netflix click.
We can get into the ethics of that as well. I mean, we'll watch wrestling,
Sure.
or we'll watch, you know, like, and
Sure.
all disagree with the politics of that
Yep.
enterprise. But I think that's the thing here, is that there's landmines everywhere, and that's why I think your general point about context is the way I feel. I would say I feel as well. I can extrapolate the art from the artists, right? I can watch the Cosby Show. Look, we're saying them all. We can't wait to get this video just blown up off the internet. But and think and watch it and enjoy it, and not see the monster, but not ignore it, right? I don't, you know, and understand why they decided to pull it from syndication. Not that I think that, and once again, we can get into a conversation about free speech and what's, you know.
Well, right, and I would not argue to censor stuff, right? I'm not about pulling episodes that have problematic stuff in it. I'm saying, give us more context about it.
Well, there's a whole good faith argument there too, right? As we speak right now, they're trying to pull Kimmel again because he said something days ago that now they're trying to give context or infer context that is impossible. So that's a conversation different.
That's
Nick,
a good point,
I
too.
want to
Yeah.
invite you into the conversation, Nick. What is your kind of feeling on this
So I'm gonna
as a Michael Jackson impersonator yourself?
yes.
And you
I'm going
modeled
to
your life
Yeah.
after Michael Jackson.
basically, yes, that's very accurate in many ways. Now, again, my childhood, huge Michael Jackson fan,
Yeah.
right? And
Well, the '80s, buddy.
that becomes problematic. I am going to take a narcissist point of view here and say that music was important in my life for a variety of different reasons. And because of that importance, I continue to listen to it. I hearken back to the old days. I try to appreciate it for what it is. But I know it still feels a certain way. And that's the same from, watching any of the old Hogan stuff or any of the old Michael Jackson stuff. And I think that that's pretty much what makes us human, and most humans, hopefully relatively decent humans who, don't want to watch other people suffer or die or anything else like that. But I don't know exactly where that line should be drawn. The Michael Jackson situation is also different in that you're talking about like one of the most high profile people to have ever lived. Um, it's almost impossible to get around a conversation involving him week to week because the music's everywhere. You got the biopic now. Again, it's a moneymaker to a large degree. But another example I would use is the Epstein situation. If we were to void or boycott any movie that ever had his fingerprint on it in some way,
Weinstein.
oh my God, what did I say?
Well, I'm sure he had his. I'm sure his
He's
fingerprints
got
are
his
all over the
fingerprints
movies.
on a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
He's running our country.
Yeah, I've totally missed those two very different people there. But
Not
again,
that different.
well, I get it. Now that you say that, Keith, yeah, really
not
that
super
at all.
different.
Devil's the devil.
Yeah, like where does it come impossible to distinguish what's right and what's wrong? And I like how Keith said it in the Harry Potter example, in that it's a context for us to re-examine some of the work, but it's also then a question of if we're going to continue supporting it. And I saw that in my children because they were big fans of Harry Potter, and to them, that's probably what Star Wars was to us, back when we were kids.
Sure was.
So at their age, do they understand the nuance, what's involved, or do they just want to go to Harry Potter World and try the butterbeer? You know what I mean? Like, so all these things I agree 100% with where Keith is. And I guess I'm just going to continue to be selfish because I don't want to not watch that music or, watch the promos or whatever.
I want to introduce a kind of an arty-farty idea, like esoteric idea, into this conversation as well, because I do believe it. And Keith, you said something that I believe, and you've said it very profoundly, and I'm going to misquote you, but basically, as a writer, as a lyricist, as a musician, once you release the art, it's sort of not yours anymore, and it evolves into something else. I will say that lyrically, in a lot of Michael Jackson music or whatever music, pick your musician or your artist from the past, like actual visual artist, who I'm sure were pretty effed up in many ways, or even Harry Potter. There are a lot of beautiful ideas that people have attempted to decode the meaning of, and a lot of times that discussion and what the artwork becomes isn't always, this is tricky to say because context is important, but isn't always maybe the writer's intent, but it's what it became and kind of what it became to represent because of the exploration or the study of it or the experience of it. So that's not to negate like your feelings of nostalgia over Hogan or what the memories we created around that. Or the time people spent around reading the Harry Potter books together as a family, right? It's separate. And I think that is the important thing, which is why I'm not really a fan of we don't listen to so-and-so anymore, or we're going to ban all their books, or we're going to ban, like it's tricky.
But again, context context and sensitivity. You don't burn the book, right? You just give the book more more context. And I think the added level that we don't do as a culture is the sensitivity, right? Because okay, so go back to Michael Jackson, right? I would not play Michael Jackson at my wedding or at my barbecue. Not necessarily because I don't like Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson's music. It's because I don't know how that's going to affect other people. Right? I don't know who at my wedding or who at the barbecue is a victim of childhood sex abuse. And that this song, this artist, this meaning re-traumatizes them because it says I don't care that they went through that because I like Beat It more than I care about what you went through. And so thinking through that and how, not if you consume it, but how you consume it, I think is on us. And I think to wash our hands of that, to wash our hands of the context of that, is selfish in a way that you don't mean, Nick, but in a deeper way that I don't think people do. I don't think many people do that on purpose, but I think it's just a lack of thought. It is a thoughtlessness in the definition of the word that we have here.
We celebrate certain types of art. We celebrate the upper echelons of fame, and to get to the places, generally speaking, to get to the places of fame where we get to celebrity. All this is changing with online culture and stuff. To get to where Michael Jackson was, you gotta kind of be a little nuts, right? Like to get to that uber fame. Like, so we're kind of and then those are the people that we make role models. Somebody ran a the fastest, the most incredible physical achievement done in our lifetimes, maybe in humankind, happened a couple days ago, and I can't even name the guy's name. All right, so we're not celebrating. I think we can agree we're not celebrating the right people.
But I think you've also said something very important there with how did these people get to where they are? How did Michael Jackson become Michael Jackson? And I don't think this should be missing from the context. Michael Jackson, as well as being a serial abuser, was serially abused and serially taken advantage of. And so that's a context that matters. J.K. Rowling probably went through some stuff, and I don't know what her story is, but she has one. That isn't in no way excuses anything, but it is also context that is important.
Here's the thing. I walk through art museums and I'll look and appreciate different visual art, and I don't know a GD thing about those artists. And that's sort of, is it incumbent upon me if I'm going to put that on my wall? Should I know if they were like, is that going to... What I'm saying is that the context matters, I guess, in these cases where it's so well known, right? That it can be effective. Like, I don't want to use your not, this is not a gotcha question, but I'm not gonna litigate my entire playlist to see if every artist on it has some sort of troublesome thing. Well, I'll never throw a barbecue again, right? But that's
no, and that is fair. And all we can do is
what we can do.
Cut off the big obvious ones and continue to learn and be open to learn. Because you're right. You can't go through 300 songs and do a deep dive on every artist who contributed to everything. But it's just like the big stuff that we know. Was that artist a Nazi? Okay.
Right.
And I also think time, like a lot of our favorite authors from our childhood, that from the 40s and 50s, they got some, Roald Dahl. Oh boy, right? And so,
it's funny.
Again,
I have to just interject this because you keep bringing up the Michael movie. None of us have seen it. I don't intend to see it until I can see it for free. Because here's my thing. I don't want
to watch another propaganda piece.
Well, it's not even the propaganda piece. I'm blown away that people watch his performances and be in awe of it. I got to watch somebody just do a 1-to-1 recreation of the Thriller video, and I'm impressed by that because of the technical achievement of it. I'm blown away that that's impressive to people personally.
If it's and without the context, it's one of the most
Right.
expensive whitewashing operations out there.
Yeah.
See, Mike, that's a good point. If you were just doing, hey, I want to recreate the Beat It video and make it look as real as possible, a very narrowly defined thing, I'm okay with that. But
That's an
if you
autistic YouTube video.
basically, yeah.
Yes.
But if you look at what they're saying, what the people who created this movie are saying, is that they purposely didn't end it when the controversy started. They chose 10 years before that.
Well, there's a second movie coming. That's why.
But that's where I'm getting. They have like a trilogy planned where it's going to be like Michael Jackson, the superhero. And that is where you have now gone into territory that.
Well, I do want to
really
point
problematic.
out. You can go see her social media stuff. I won't speak for her, but his daughter Paris has a great response to this, where she was like, "This is all BS. I want no part of it. Stop asking me my opinion." I was like, "That's pretty awesome." Keith, you're right. I mean, I'm impressed by the people who can do the moves and who have devoted their lives to learn the choreography and learn the style. It's like people learning Fosse. It's exactly that. I'm very impressed by that. But I don't want to see a movie about it. But that's, I haven't seen the movie, so I'm just. But it's one of the biggest discrepancies between critical acclaim and the Rotten Tomato score of people's experience out of the theater. And I think because people want to celebrate their fandom of this thing.
Well, and part of this movie in particular galls me, and MJ the musical, which is why I will not see MJ the musical, even though people I know and respect are a part of it, because part of the fandom of the biohagiography of MJ is a denial of the abuse. I'm going to do this to prove that I don't believe in that. I'm actively, it's his own family are producing these things, his own, and I don't know. It makes me
Well, I this is not the conversation I want to have right now. I'm just we don't have time, or this is not really but it is another glaring thing, or I guess propaganda is a great word, but nationalism when you're kids and you're in school and the Pledge of Allegiance and all of that is given to you in such a way that it feels like it's just a real thing, right? Like the Constitution being infallible and politicians and presidents and stuff
our
being
founding fathers.
Yeah, is such a thing. Is such a, I guess, a indoctrination that is so crazy. And another one of those things is our justice system, right? Innocent until proven guilty. And thus, if you are not officially proven guilty in court now, right, you are exonerated of. And so it's very easy to hide behind this a sense of exoneration instead of giving any sort of credence to certain allegations. I'm not making this specifically about Michael Jackson. This goes well beyond, right? And the opposite is true too. Many murderers and people that are just overcrowding our prisons because a jury of randos was like, okay, yeah, you did it. It means you're done, right? It means, and the district attorneys are like, case closed, no matter if someone else comes out of the woodwork. So it's nuance, context, all of these middle ground things. I think, Nick, as an educator, I'm hoping this is the crap we're trying to teach kids, right? Critical thinking?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Critical thinking. Yeah, that's and problem solving, and really looking for good, solid, first person, second person evidence of things coming from real sources. Those are the types of things we hope for. However, at the same time, you walk through the cafeteria and everyone's trying to make a TikTok video. So you've got that too, for sure. Mm-hmm. I would, to share some positive light on the three big things we've just been talking about. I would say this: if you are a fan of comedy, then you can look at some of this constitutional stuff in the SNL skit with Matthew McConaughey, where they talk about the Second Amendment, one of the funniest skits I've ever seen on that show. If you want to listen to a great Michael Jackson song and watch a great Michael Jackson video, Rock With You, I mean, that is literally like a relaxing vibe with a guy who can dance, right? Nothing else invested. And if you want to see a good Hulk Hogan promo, the promo where he responds to Ted DiBiase's offer to buy the WWF Championship might be one of the best promos of all time. So there's a couple just things that you can enjoy.
Completely out of context to negate everything Keith said.
Context. No, but
No
you can have it with
context.
context if you want. You can have the context if you want it, for sure.
Well, I think we can close it with Hogan is a great example. Michael Jackson, his talent was, I guess, cults of personality are a really fascinating thing. You know, I'm obsessed with my culty cults, and the cult of personality is one of them as well. It's to captivate that number of people and to have them sort of just drink the Kool-Aid is really a weird, scary part of human nature, is it not?
CM Punk.
Yeah.
Called that. I was thinking Jim Jones, but same difference.
Okay, so yeah, that was a lot. Let's change. Well, this is actually a very fascinating conversation. We can keep going, but we don't have an answer. Context, though, I think Keith, you nailed it in your first 30 seconds, and is we got to work towards context if and when possible. I'll go ahead and start because I'm going to steal what Keith has said for weeks and weeks, but it really, this might be it. This might be the 1 or 2 week window if you're here on the East Coast with us where it's spring before summer starts. And take advantage of it in any way, shape, or form. We're doing a little gardening, take a hike if you can, take a walk. Enjoy the spring because they are only going to get shorter in our lifespan, and we definitely will live to see the last one. So enjoy it while it's here. Keith?
Yeah, speaking of things to enjoy while it's here, because it'll be very fleeting for me, that is the NHL hockey playoffs. And I am so excited to see Mike sporting a hockey hat. I don't think I've ever seen you sport a hockey hat.
I don't think I've ever put it on. It's been over there, but
you've been watching the Flyers and the Penguins. My Boston Bruins are getting their butts kicked by the Buffalo Sabres. That's okay. We're just grateful to be here this year. We'll be better next year. But there's nothing more fun, especially than the first round of the NHL playoffs.
I really enjoy the hockey in general because, and I'm not a watch every year kind of guy. I love to jump in at the playoffs if I have something to root for. Sometimes it's your Bruins, Keith. I like to pick a team in the playoffs. The playoffs in any sport are the best thing, but hockey always seems to go around to game sevens, right? You could be up 3-0, you could be up whatever, and somehow you end up in a game 7. It's
nothing
pretty
more
crazy.
Magical than game 7.
Which is why even up 3-0 when we were in the series, I'm not counting any chickens until they're in the goal.
Hardest game is the fourth win for sure.
Also, the fighting thing is still crazy to me.
Awesome.
It's awesome, but bizarre that there's no actual official rules, but there's sort of like tacit rules.
Oh, big time rules. Yeah, we're gonna stop our hockey game for a fist fight that everyone knows
until
it is like it's okay. We all get it. It's all part of the game.
Until the ref kind of decides it's over, or you hit the ground. It's like I don't really understand.
You get tired really more often.
But also they're allowed to just parent you. They're allowed to be like everybody goes to the penalty box. Everybody, the whole team. But then now 4 skaters are allowed on the ice. I don't get any of it, but you know what? It's exciting,
great.
and I'm
It's
enjoying
glorious.
it. I can't follow the puck, and there's a lot of commercials, Keith. And there's a lot of shit on the ice, as you mentioned.
A lot of shit on the ice. Drives me up.
I don't appreciate
up the wall.
Nick, Weekly Rad.
My weekly rad is that I have 1 episode left of a podcast that one of my assistant principals, Ildy Brown, has recommended, and it is called The Killing Month, August 1978. And it is about the area where I live and where I work in Chester County. Back in 1978, there was a series of murders which became an unbelievable, fantastical story right in our backyard. National news caught everyone's attention. It's basically the story of a gang, the Johnston gang, who was a family who were involved in a whole bunch of thievery, and then very quickly it turned to murder, and it covers the entire perspective of this case. The person who made the podcast was the daughter of the district attorney who prosecuted the case. So in addition to getting all these wonderful interviews from firsthand resources, you get her perspective as a young child going through the case as well. Awesome podcast, awesome listening, really, really, really colorful characters, very terrifying and scary at times too, and your mind will definitely be blown. So strongly recommended there.
What was that called again?
It's called The Killing Month, August 1978.
That's the thing you text us in the group in that other thread, Nick?
Yes.
Okay, I'll check that. I'm definitely in the hunt for new podcasts. If you have recommendations for podcasts or shows or anything, you can always leave them below.
Yes.
We're always
Please.
looking for stuff. Make sure to check out our Discord. That's linked below. Awesome group of people over there, and we'd love to see the Geekly portion get blown up a little bit. Also, you can join our Patreon over at patreon.com/KNM. It's a lot about our Star Trek stuff, but it's also, you can give $1 just to help us support our channels and our content as YouTube and the internets are working overtime to not give us any money. That all said, appreciate you guys for joining us. We'll be back next week. In the interim, keep on doing the things you find fun while you have time to do them. Don't let anyone yuck your yum with context, and keep on geeking on.